Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends, as this video is brought to you by drroto.com.
Hey guys, welcome to DFS Saturdays with Sam and Chris, brought to you by drroto.com. Get your daily prescription of fantasy sports. Chris, how are you on this Saturday?
To be honest, I'm a little bit hungover, but I'm getting through it. I was on Rum Boys After Dark last night, got a little crazy, did some college football Saturdays this morning, and I've got a busy day of lineup building, and I actually have to allot some time for my wife today.
Well, that's sweet of you.
Yeah. Well, because tomorrow she gets no time. So.
Yeah. I understand that completely. But we want to go through these DFS lineups to get everyone started, get all the knowledge out of your head that we can to get everyone ready for week 2 and to set up their best possible lineup. There's a lot of great games on the slate. We can start off the bat just really quickly. I think that Kansas City and Baltimore is going to be a really great game, not just to watch, but I feel like this is going to be one where Lamar Jackson's actually going to have to make this a bit of a shootout to keep up with Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting game. It isn't one that I'm glad it's not on the main slate, because then you have to make the kind of decisions on whether you're going to play Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes. Are you going to play them together? Are you going to play them one off? It just, for me, Baltimore just seems like they're that team this year that's going to be cursed, kind of like Philly. So I'm really thinking that KC just rolls them. I don't even think KC's concerned. You saw Travis Kelce on Monday night. He's like, are we even playing Baltimore? He didn't even know. He had no idea. Because I just genuinely think that it's going to be bad. They've always handled them very well. Mm-hmm. And with all their injuries, it's not going to get any better for Baltimore.
Absolutely. I think I saw some crazy stat about how Lamar Jackson he hasn't won a game against Mahomes yet. And that's just so astounding to me. I mean, to just be throwing up a complete zero there it's not surprising because it's Mahomes and it's the Chiefs, but also Lamar Jackson has a lot still left in the tank that he can, I think, pull out a win if he really wanted to.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a 5-1 construction. So I'm going to have 5 Chiefs in that game and probably like Lamar Jackson, Sammy Watkins, or something along those lines.
Nice. All right, well, let's move on to just starting at the quarterback position as everyone's building their lineups for tomorrow. Dak and Herbert are pretty high up on a lot of people's lists to get into their lineup because that is going to be very much a shootout game. So where do you stand, and which would you rather of those two quarterbacks?
They're both coming in pretty identical in terms of ownership percentage for me. So that's just kind of something to monitor. But, for me, it's been one of those weird things that, like, I just last year always faded the game. It's like the Cowboys can't get into another shootout like this. They can't be optimal again, can they? And then just week after week it happens. And, I didn't have to make that decision in week 1. But now we do have to make that decision. And, I'm going to have probably equal ownership of both of these guys. If I'm making 20 lineups, I probably have, 5 of each of these guys or maybe more. I don't think you can go wrong. It just seems like a smash spot for both of these guys. This game should be a shootout. But what if it isn't? What if the Chargers come in and roll over Dallas, or vice versa? Like, who else are we playing? Like, where do we go? Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady. These are all pretty viable plays. And then they're going to come in at half the ownership. One guy that I really like, and I can't believe that he's not getting more hype than he is, especially given the ancillary pieces, is Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm. Matthew Stafford's coming in at less than 5% ownership. Cooper Kupp's slated to be the second highest owned wide receiver in the slate. And how is he going to score points? It's going to come from Matthew Stafford, right? Yeah. Jared Cook's going to be the third highest tight end. Well, where are his points coming from? From Matthew Stafford. So, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. But I think that maybe people are just a little bit wary of the Colts defense there for the Rams. Maybe that's their only hesitation.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't have Xavier Howard. So, I don't know if that defense is really as good as we're thinking. I think the bigger concern for me is, are the Colts going to be able to keep up? is that offense going to be good enough? I mean, Paris Campbell was on the injury report, so he's a little bit banged up. Jalen Ramsey's going to be all over those receivers. We were big on Michael Pittman last week, and Michael Pittman is going to be somebody that I look at in DFS and fantasy for, most of the season. But let's, not be cute about it. He's not, a wide receiver one. Nobody in that offense is. Jalen Ramsey is going to shut down whoever he's on, and that's going to rotate through the game. So I guess I'm concerned. I did place a wager last night that the Colts win this outright, though. So I'm pretty confident in that, or at least I'm pretty hopeful in that. And, I said Jared Cook. I meant Tyler Higbee. He's going to be the highest owned. Jared Cook's the guy that I like, but Tyler Higbee is, looking at 15% ownership. So when you see these things, why is Matt Stafford not getting the same type of love? And so, that's just kind of the sneaky quarterback play that shouldn't be sneaky at all.
Gotcha. So if someone was to start Stafford in one of their lineups, would you want to pair him up with a Cooper Kupp or a Tyler Higbee right off the bat?
Yeah, or both of them. Why not? I think the biggest challenge is who do you bring it back with? Because a lot of times if you're going to be in a game environment where you're going to have both of those guys going off, it's not college football. You're not going to see, 30 and 40 point blowouts. And so the offense kind of needs the other offense to keep up. That was a concern that I had last week. I played a lot of Russell Wilson. I played a lot of the Seahawks. But I was afraid that they were just going to run away with it. You kind of saw that same scenario happen in the Green Bay New Orleans game, where Green Bay's pieces weren't able to keep up. Jameis Winston didn't have to throw a lot. And while those pieces had a good fantasy day, Callaway, Harris, Kamara, they just didn't have, ceiling type games that you're looking for. And it's because they didn't need to.
Gotcha. Now, is there another quarterback that maybe people can spend a little bit less on that you're high on as well that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple spots. If you want to get really down here, so Matt Ryan is going to be forced to throw the ball. I mean, there are concerns about his offensive line, but this guy's going to be less than 1% ownership, probably similar to kind of Jameis Winston. And both of these guys are relatively inexpensive. They're in games that, they're going to be the focal points of their offense and distributing that ball. So I love Matt Ryan at 1%. I don't like him at 10%. But it's the first divisional game between these two in the year. And so why not? Mike Davis isn't doing anything against that Tampa Bay defense. So
no.
So, it's going to come from Matt Ryan.
Gotcha. So then which of the Falcons receivers or even Kyle Pitts would you want to pair with Matt Ryan should you make that stack?
Yeah, I mean, I think Calvin Ridley is the obvious choice. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be pretty highly owned. I've been lower on Kyle Pitts as a whole. But now just looking at his ownership, he looks like, he's projected to be the 7th or 8th highest. He's still at 5,200. It's a great spot. Less than 5% ownership with Darren Waller, George Kittle, Cook, Fant, and Higbee all being ranked ahead of him. Mm-hmm. I'm good to go for a bounce back. I mean, the biggest thing that we can do is leverage kind of recency bias and people who think they know what they're gonna get out of week 2 based off of week 1. Let's go the other way. So Kyle Pitts, he was out there. He just didn't get the opportunities.
Gotcha. All right, let's move to the running back position. I have a note here. There's a lot of good mid-priced options that you're favoring this week, but then the big question is, do you want to lean on those mid-priced guys, or would you rather pay up and pay for the Alvin Kamara, pay for the Cook, pay for the CMC this week?
Yeah, so, a couple of those plays in that mid-tier, and they've been bouncing around in terms of my ownership projections. We've got Nache Harris as the number one. I don't know if you know this. I know you're a Steelers fan, but did you know Nache Harris played 100% of the snaps in week 1?
I did know that.
I don't think you can open Twitter without knowing that. Everybody is telling us that. Look, here's the thing, though. Would it hurt you, but would it shock you if he had another bad game in week 2? Would it shock you if he's just a complete bust this season? It wouldn't shock me. That's within the range of outcomes. And this guy is slated to be 25% owned. It's a great price. All the things line up, but we have never seen anything at the pro level from Nache Harris.
I understand that hesitation, and maybe it's my Homer spirit talking, but I don't think he's going to be a bust this season.
But whether or not he's a bust this season, it doesn't matter.
This week, whether or not you want to play him.
Is he a bust
Sure.
this week? I mean, when we look at some of these rookies coming in, historically don't necessarily get off to a tremendous start. That's why it was kind of shocking to see. Not shocking, but it was good to see like Jamar Chase get off to a good start, especially on a long pass from Joe Burrow. But look, Nache Harris didn't look impressive last week. Now, Las Vegas isn't Buffalo. So, I mean, that's why, Tyson Williams looked good. And we don't know anything about him either, really. We don't have the tape. So, Nache Harris is in a good position. I don't know if I want to pay it 25%. When you have two plays in that same price range that are going to go lower owned and I think are in similar, if not better spots. One being Chris Carson, the other one being Ezekiel Elliott. Okay. Talking about recency bias, when was the last time that you remember Ezekiel Elliott having a good game?
It's been a minute. Like I'd have to actually scroll through my phone to find the good game because I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, I'll tell you, I think he had one without Dak, but those games last year when they got into those shootouts, with Dak, I mean, he was putting up around 20 fantasy points, 22, 23, and at 6,200, and we can get him sub 15% ownership, and he goes for 22 to 28. I mean, that's huge, not only from an ownership perspective, but if Ezekiel Elliott's having a good game, who's not having a good game, or likely, is CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Cedric Wilson, three pieces that are going to be highly owned in a lot of other people's lineups. And so if Ezekiel Elliott gets that touchdown, that's a touchdown they don't get. And, I think that's, a fantastic leverage spot. But beyond that, to your question, do I pay up? Christian McCaffrey, less than 10% ownership or right around there. At 9,900, he's super expensive. I don't know if you're like me, but when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, I try not to play. I think all week, like, this is a great play, this is a great play, this is a great play. But, dude, do I really want to pay $10,000 for this guy? Is he really going to do what he's done every single week?
Yeah.
Since he's been healthy? Nah, it's not going to be this week. It's a raw point situation. I love Christian McCaffrey at 10%. I think it makes your lineup very different, too, because of the way that you have to construct it.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've spent a lot of money if we're going into this range for running back. What's a running back 2 that you really favor this week?
I think like Damian Harris at 7% is a 5,400. I don't want to get too much cheaper than that, but so Damian Harris at 5,400, and then I'm kind of in big GPPs taking a flyer, knowing that his floor is really low. Javonte Williams at 4,400. Melvin Gordon had an equal timeshare to Javonte Williams, and I've seen this. Sometimes it's hard to kind of differentiate what's in my echo chamber and what. I think I'm sharp. Maybe I'm not, but like the people that think I'm sharp or think they're sharp too, and we all hang out together. But I've heard this talk about Melvin Gordon not being a good play, and I'm the biggest Melvin Gordon hater in the world. I'm up there, maybe not the biggest. I think Javonte Williams is a great play at 4,400.
Gotcha. I like that too, and I think at least for me, when I'm building these rosters, I'm just kind of going back and forth on how much is too much to pay at the position. But I think that Harris there is a really good value as well against the Jets. I like that matchup a lot for him.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this one out there too, because, we were talking about trying to find a run back on the Colts against the Rams. Mm-hmm. Naheem Hines at 4,700. Look, if you think that the Colts, and I think the consensus from anybody that I've talked to is that the Rams are just going to run over the Colts, and that very well may happen. That's probably what does occur. So I would think that Naheem Hines is going to be in there a lot more than usual. Mm-hmm. Pass blocking, pass catching, and at 4,700, if he can find his way into the end zone, his ceiling is super attainable. He's obviously a guy that has a super low floor, but as we saw last year, it's not out of this world to assume that he can score 2 touchdowns and put up 25 fantasy points.
Definitely. Let's go on to the wide receiver position. We can probably end up looping back to the quarterback conversation we had as we look to stack some of these players. But I'm right off the bat, I see Robert Woods is just at the top, is someone that I would love to own if I'm going to be playing Stafford.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I think you like that to double down because I think you're a owner of Robert Woods in your in your season-long fantasy leagues.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that correct?
I have him in a lot of leagues. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. And so when it comes to a lot of these different wide receiving cores, one of the things that I like to do when it comes to whether it's the Seahawks, whether it's the Bucks, and, in terms of the Rams, is take the lower owned guy of the two.
Okay.
So Cooper Kupp is 6,400. Robert Woods is 5,700. He's the cheaper of the two. He's coming in sub 10% ownership, whereas CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Kupp are almost similar, around 20% ownership. So you're getting a tremendous amount of leverage if you're stacking it with Stafford. Robert Woods catching 1, maybe 2 touchdowns really does hurt the upside that Cooper Kupp lineups, and it's going to just kind of catapult you over, the 20% of lineups that have Cooper Kupp.
Gotcha. Now, as you're going down the list of wide receivers, because in this matchup that I have pulled up, I've got 3 wide receivers starting. How do you end up separating out your price per receiver as you go down the list?
I don't even do it like that. What I really do is you put the game stack that you want. So, like, in this case, let's say, I want the Rams and the Colts, and I'm going to put the pieces in from that team first.
Mm-hmm.
The primary team, the primary stack, who am I going to run back? And then I just start filling out my lineup from there and kind of tinkering. So, wide receivers that are super expensive later in the season are more volatile, but we don't have any of those guys. Most of these wide receivers are vastly underpriced. So I don't really consider that.
Gotcha. No, that's good to know. Let's talk a little bit more about my Steelers, because why not? But of the receivers there to own this week, which would you rather be slotting in?
I think, and this is going to be kind of just my, season-long take is Juju. I think he's going to be the lower owned of the two. Ben doesn't have the arm strength anymore. He's looking a lot like Drew Brees at the end of his career. His average depth of target is one of the worst in the NFL. He's down there with like Jared Goff, who's, to his credit, Ben's a lot older than Jared Goff. So Juju running out of the slot is going to have those shorter routes. He's going to have easier matchups. This is just a spot where people think that the volume goes to Deontay, and it does, but similar volume goes to Juju. He's just not. I don't know. I don't understand why people don't see him as that kind of primary option that he kind of is.
I think it's because a lot of people, the year after Antonio Brown was out, it was just widely known Juju was going to be the number 1 receiver. And so everyone thought he was going to be Antonio Brown, which is kind of big shoes to fill. So that's a lot to ask of a receiver. And maybe I'm just being overly defensive of Juju like I would. But I don't think that he fits that role as well as Deontay does. And because the Steelers like to have multiple receivers, he actually fits better just as the wide receiver too. So he should have just been drafted as a wide receiver too. And so a lot of people were burned by that.
Yeah, I mean, he's slated at 1% ownership
Mm-hmm.
this week at 5,700. He's only 100 more than Chase Claypool, which I think almost any start-sit question I get in seasonal is very similar to the one that we have right here, where Claypool is always involved in there. And I'm just not a big – I like Claypool as a player. I just don't like his fantasy output specifically for DFS. Season long, obviously, you're getting him where he drafted. In this situation here, pick 2, I'm probably Jacoby and I don't know. You pick the second one.
I think I like Jamar and Jacoby. I think that's a good little combo there for me.
All right. I was thinking maybe even Tim Patrick, depends, but Sutton didn't show up on the injury report. So, yeah, I mean, I like Juju. Juju's the guy that I'm going to pair or going to put into most of my Steelers games. If you're going to play that game, obviously, you're probably playing Darren Waller, right? So you play Darren Waller, Juju Smith is the correlation run back.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go ahead and while you're saying that, just throw Waller into this lineup. I'm going to submit whatever lineup I get after the end of this show, and we're going to see how I do. So I'm excited. Okay, more receivers to talk about, though, because there's a lot of value. Looking at the game, at the Tampa Bay and the Falcons game, this is one where if you're someone that owns in season long any Falcons offensive player after last week, you're questioning your life really right now and how you drafted for the season, because it was just such a brutal week last week. And you said earlier, Matt Ryan's going to be in a shootout. He's going to be throwing for his job probably just in this game. Is Mike Evans someone that you'd want to play up against that? Or how would you want to rank these receivers? Because also Mike Evans had a rough go last week with the Bucks.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. When this goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier is how do you play these highly talented group of receivers? Mike Evans should be the second or the lowest high owned of this group. Chris Godwin, after his first week and just the higher floor, is going to be higher owned. I like Mike Evans. I like Antonio Brown. It's really where the ownership projections come in, tomorrow. I've seen throughout the week, Antonio Brown go from like 1% to 10%, which makes more sense. We've talked about Mike Evans having a bounce back week. I have a couple Mike Evans anytime touchdown props because I just think this is a good spot for him. When it comes to the Falcons, though, that was a disappointing game, but maybe the Eagles are just good. Maybe their defense is legit. We don't know that yet. And that's how we have to kind of approach these things, where a lot of people are taking data from last year. Granted, that's only data that you have, but is that data really good? Like somebody told me the other day, Daniel Jones is 4-0 against the football team. Who cares? What does that even mean? Okay, against now he's 0-1 this season. What does it matter? It's a different team. He has different guys around him. They have different guys around him. So this Eagles defense might be very good. And we're going to kind of start to learn a little bit more about these teams as the week goes on, but we need to play off of those recency biases that people have.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Let's stay on the Eagles for a minute as we continue into the flex position. And I see Miles Sanders here. I do think that the Eagles are going to be better this season than people think. I think they proved that last week. And I think that they were able to utilize their backs in a lot more dynamic ways than all of us thought. Is Sanders someone that against SF, they have a very good defense. I might be a little bit hesitant, but I do like his price at 6,900.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have the Eagles winning this game outright. I like them. I don't even need the spread. I think, Devontae Smith is a good play, but Miles Sanders is just going completely overlooked. We're seeing a sub 5%. 7,000 is pretty high for him. Mm-hmm. It's towards that ceiling, but I kind of like it. You can see Miles Sanders breaking off a big run, getting a touchdown or two. The concern that you have with a running quarterback is that they obviously could possibly steal a touchdown and, within the five-yard line.
Sure.
But typically a running quarterback is a positive correlation for the running back because there's just more things that at the line of scrimmage the defense has to pay attention to. So I love Miles Sanders at 6,900.
Gotcha. And then Jarvis Landry is someone that I like a lot this week in standard and season long as well, just because we know that OBJ is out. And I also just love his matchup here against Houston. Is he someone at 6,300 that you'd like to get in there as well?
Yeah, as a standalone, I don't necessarily think that this is a game that I want to stack. I don't believe in the Texans. There's been talk of are the Texans as bad as we thought they are? Yeah, why not? Who cares? They beat Jacksonville. What does that matter? Tyrod Taylor is who we think he is. That was the best game that Tyrod Taylor's gonna have all season. We've seen enough Tyrod Taylor. How many jobs has he been, replaced at? I don't know. It could be a revenge game. This is a revenge game, maybe. Baker was at one of those particular jobs. But I like Chubb better in this game. I like Chubb anytime touchdown props. And, I guess the concern is if they run away from this, Landry to me is always a guy that needs a ton of targets to get those points because he's not a deep guy. He's not going to break a lot of long touchdowns. It's certainly within his wheelhouse to do, but he's a volume guy. He's a PPR guy, and he's great in season long. And, he could have a big game, but I'm probably not paying for him at 6,300 here.
Okay. I just want to loop back on tight end really quick. Are there any tight ends that you'd want to just reach deep down in the bucket and to pay pennies on if anyone is interested in making that kind of a move?
Yeah, O'Shaughnessy.
Okay.
That's where I want to go. 2,700 opens up a lot of things. You can pay for Christian McCaffrey. You can pay for a lot of people when you're only paying 2,700 for your tight end. And look, what it comes down to is when you're playing these lower price guys, you don't want them to 3x. We're not looking for them to 5x. You really want this guy to be able to 10x his salary. Is that possible? Probably not necessarily with O'Shaughnessy, but he did see 8 targets. Obviously an inflated passing game, but let's be honest, Jacksonville's probably going to be behind most games, and he's going to see a lot of targets. He was out on the field 59 out of 74 snaps, had a great air yards and target share for a $2,700 tight end. If he gets you another 10 points, it doesn't kill you. It's not going to win you a tournament, but it's not going to kill you, and hopefully, somebody else in your lineup can pick up the slack.
Yeah. I love that. Any other tight ends that you like late like that? I mean, would you want to throw a dart at Parham just because we like that game so much to be such a high scoring game?
No, I like Cook a little bit more at 3,900. Okay. He's in my write up. He's probably, when I initially ran ownership, he was a lot lower than what he is at this point, but we're still seeing him probably too low for his price. A lot of attention is going to go over to Darren Waller, and that's nice, especially the game that he had. It's justifiable, but Darren Waller disappears sometimes. I mean, the whole Las Vegas offense disappears at sometimes, and I'm the biggest Derek Carr fan, from a fantasy spot. But this isn't the game for him. This isn't the game for Waller. So I hope people go to that game in terms of ownership. And Jared Cook stays sub 10% at 3,900. It's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's definitely still pretty cheap. Let's go ahead and talk defenses, because I think this is something that, we were talking before we went on air, and that's a position that sometimes I'm just like, do I even have to put a defense in? I'd rather pay all my money to get better skill players. Where do you stand on that? Do you tend to overpay for defense? At the top we've got the Rams and the Bucks, but is that a price you want to pay, or would you rather look for the better steal?
So I have 2 plays that I like for defense this week. I think the Seattle defense is super interesting. They got a lot of pressure onto Carson Wentz last week. We saw that Tennessee offensive line have some issues. Was this that the Cardinals were really good, or are they really bad? It's a situation where I don't think Seattle's defense is going to have a lot of ownership. They're kind of right there in the middle at 3,000. So I think that's an interesting play. My favorite play, and this is probably not going to work out, but I'm going to keep playing it every single week until it does. And, I'm going to look like a genius at some point, maybe, is Arizona at 2,900.
Okay.
That defensive line is going to get pressure. They're playing Minnesota, an immobile quarterback with an offensive line that didn't look good in week 1.
Yep.
And then on top of that, I wouldn't stack them with Rondale Moore. There's not a lot of receivers right now that are returning kicks, that are returning punts. And if he scores a touchdown on a kick return or on a punt return, you get to double dip. You just don't have a lot of opportunities anymore in the NFL. That's more of a specialized position. You get to do it with, on Sunday night. Maybe you can do it with the little Devin Duvernay and Baltimore if you want to. But I think this is a better spot. It makes it even nicer that the Arizona defense looks decent. If they're going to get sacks, that can lead to turnovers, and they could score a touchdown independently of Rondale Moore. And both of these plays could work independently of each other, but together, the synergy, love it.
Got it. I love that. All right. It looks like I've managed to put together a lineup for myself. So let me throw it at you and see if I did this right. I'm trying to take notes as I'm going. Okay. So I've got Matt Stafford as my quarterback. I've got Zeke, Damian Harris with my 2 running backs. And then I've got Robert Woods, Juju, and Mike Evans in my receiver spot. I put O'Shaughnessy in tight end, and I've got Landry as a flex with the Cardinals defense.
Yeah, I don't hate it. If you want to just go crazy, I'd get like Rondale Moore in there, maybe for like Landry, and then pay up somewhere else. Look, you don't have to play Damian Harris. You can play Nache Harris if you want to.
Can I play my guy?
Yeah, go ahead. Put him in there.
All right, fine. I like that better. It looks so much prettier anyways. There we go.
And I think you could probably pay up at tight end in that case. Obviously you're paying down in a couple other positions. So let's get off of that O'Shaughnessy play. And what do you have left for tight end if that's the case?
Let's see. I've got 4,400 for a tight end then?
I think you can either go probably Noah Fant or Tyler Higbee or Jared Cook. I mean, any one of those three. Let's go with Jared Cook. He's in my write-up. I've talked about him. I like the play. Let's put Cook in there so you get at least some piece of that Chargers-Dallas game to run back this week.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to save this lineup and I'm going to enter it into as many places as I can. And then we're going to circle back and see how this lineup did, because I think that'd be really fun to see. Also, I could use some spending money for this weekend.
Yeah. I hope it makes you rich. I just want 10% if it's over, $10,000. That's all.
I can do that. I will make that deal with you. If I make over $10,000 on this bet, then yes, you can have $1,000.
All right,
let's see if we can get to a couple of these questions before we sign off. We've got Kyle Senra joining us. He said, great show. Really appreciate you, Kyle. He said he was all in on Landry for DFS last week when they played the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was a smash spot. It's a little different this week. I just don't think that game environment is what it was last week. I mean, it was the highest projected total game last week, but people still faded it. This week, they should take care of business. Houston is implied for almost less than 20 points, like 17.8, I think, right now. Mm-hmm. So, there's not going to be a lot of scoring. They're going to run the ball a lot. I just don't see Landry, getting into that 25, 26 point range where you'd be looking for him at his price.
Gotcha. Cool. Any final notes while people are setting their lineups today and then going into tomorrow morning?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is just leverage what people, build lineups to beat people who think they know what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, while projections are great over the course of an entire season, singular games are outliers. And, even the sharpest people are not going to hit every one of these games exactly. There's a reason 13-team parlays pay what they do, and there's a reason you don't win them. It's because it's hard to predict games in small sample sizes. Anything can happen. So just play the leverage, and then that way you can get paid off. If you're right, you're going to win. We're not from min cashing here.
Love that. All right. Thanks guys so much for listening. Check out all the other content, seasonal and DFS tools, as well as premium access to our staff for all your fantasy sports questions in the members only Discord right here at drroto.com. Have a great Saturday, everyone.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.